Papua New Guinea, and welcome to another episode of Business PNG. Tonight we bring you the first edition of Business Advantage Boardroom. As Publishing Director of Business Advantage International, Andrew Wilkins has a chat with some of the leaders of PNG's financial sector.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Business Advantage Boardroom. My name is Andrew Wilkins, Publishing Director at Business Advantage International. For over a decade, Business Advantage has been reporting on business in PNG and also promoting PNG around the world as a place to do business. Now, while PNG is a country full of opportunities for businesses large and small, there are sometimes challenges, and the issues business people face can be complex and confusing. Sometimes the best way to remove confusion is to get the right experts in a room together and to talk it out. And that's what Business Advantage Boardroom is all about. Tonight we'll be talking about some of the biggest issues facing business in PNG today. The weakness of PNG's currency, the Kina, and the difficulties that has created for businesses who need to pay for goods and services in foreign currency. How businesses of all sizes can get the finance they need to grow, and what PNG's banks and other financial institutions can do to grow business in PNG. To discuss all this and more, I'm delighted to welcome three of the top people in PNG's financial sector. The Governor of the Bank of PNG, PNG's Central Bank, Lloyd Bakani, the banker's boss. The man in charge of PNG's largest bank, BSP CEO Robin Fleming. And Moses Liu, Managing Director of the National Development Bank, which plays a vital role in encouraging the growth of PNG businesses, especially in rural areas. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start with the Kina. This is a hot topic amongst all business people. The value of PNG's currency, the Kina, has continued to fall significantly this year, about 5% down against the US dollar and over 9% against the Aussie dollar. Generally speaking, a weak Kina makes it more expensive to buy goods from overseas and can put pressure on inflation. On the other hand, it can make it cheaper for the world to buy PNG's exports. Now, Governor Bakani, you've been concerned about the speed of the Kina's fall, and the Bank of PNG has put in place controls for the trading of the currency, which in turn has limited availability of foreign exchange. Why have you done that? And how long do you think it's going to be necessary to continue to have those controls in place?
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, listeners. The Central Bank introduced what we call a trading margin. It's not a part of exchange control, but it's a trading margin that sets the rate where the exchange rate that the banks will have to set. It's a correction to the price setting mechanism. It's not any control at all to stop the downward movement in the Kina. The Kina, as you mentioned also, has been depreciating since 2012. 2012 to 2016, it has depreciated against the US dollar by 36%. It is a huge depreciation for any currency, and the issue that we have in front of us is the lack of foreign exchange coming into the country. And the reasons for that is due to low commodity price that we have, low investment into Papua New Guinea, and lack of export, increase in export going overseas to bring back the foreign exchange.
So if that's the case, are we going to see the Kina continue to fall? Or do you see a time, what sort of things do we need to see before the Kina starts to stabilise, or before you can relax some of the controls you put in place?
Central banks, for that matter, don't predict movement in currency. It's a very risky business, and I expect also businesses not to get into it, because it's a very, very risky area, and it has a lot of, it can cause lack of confidence in the economy, in the management of the economy, if I start to say the Kina will continue to go depreciate. It is really an issue based on supply and demand of foreign currency, or Kina, for that matter. Now, to say whether we will continue to assess the margins the trading margins, which we set at 75 basis points above and below the or the mid exchange rate set by the market, and where we feel comfortable that the banks are behaving the right way, that the market should be behaving, then of course we will remove the trading margin. At the moment, the exchange rate is set at around 75 basis points, and that's the way we will remain for some time.
And the Governor's correct, it is very much a flow-based currency.
Yes.
And it's unusual that you have a small number of exporters who deliver all of the dollars available for distribution intermediated by the commercial banks, and a very, very large number of importers. And as we cast our minds back to 2007, 2008, the expectation was that there would be significant impact of the so-called Dutch disease on PNG because of the surplus of dollars associated with the PNG LNG gas project and the revenues associated with that. As has transpired, around 2012, 2013, we started to see gas prices, oil prices, which are correlated to gas, which is all correlated to the oil prices, start to fall significantly, considerably below what had been projected by all the experts associated with the modelling for PNG LNG. Therefore, we get to 2013, 2014, most of the inflows that have been associated with the production phase have stopped, which was anticipated. Flows associated with the production phase have actually not been as high, and therefore imports have continued to remain apace at quite a significant level, without businesses necessarily contemplating that there was always going to be some tailing off of demand in country. Therefore, what we've had is a significant build-up in the import orders from various businesses who perhaps haven't necessarily given due regard to some slowdown in economic activity, and equally the dollar against our commodity prices has fallen significantly. The Governor's correct, there's no controls around what is permitted to go outside of country. No. Normal foreign exchange controls that existed in the past continue to exist at the moment. All that they did with the ban was to say to banks who perhaps had been unduly usurious in some of the profit margins which were being attracted to the foreign exchange income, that you have to be somewhat more reasonable about the profits that you're going to consume to the expense of the importer. Over the past 12 months, we have seen the import orders, they certainly haven't increased, and in fact, I'd suggest over the last 3 to 4 months, they have started to reduce. Many of the medium to smaller importers, we're finding now, within 2 to 3 weeks, they're able to get their reasonable orders placed and satisfied. Capital payments a little bit different. Obviously, some of the larger importers who have significant demands still facing some issues in being able to regularise that. But we certainly have a feeling that with an improvement in commodity prices and commodity outputs in the agricultural sector, and with some of the flows associated with octeti starting to come in more significantly, and recognise that octeti was out of the market for El Nino drought-related reasons, best part of 9 months. 300 to 350 million US, which is the equivalent almost of what the backlog of orders is. We can't recast what happened from an El Nino perspective, but equally you have to put some of these things into context. Therefore, whilst it'll be somewhat more difficult still for the next 12 to 18 months, I have a feeling that the import demand or the orders will start to reduce. It will start to normalise. We've also got to recognise that we've got Pyongyang and Total, Exxon, oil search with the next LNG, which sometime in the next 12 to 18 months are going to come to investment decisions, and investment decisions of close to between 15 to 20 million US each.
And that's a lot of extra business in the pipeline.
It is, and you've got to have confidence in the economy. And the central bank has to, as it does quite reasonably, look through these cycles, be able to balance the cycles against our current forecast of where investment's going to come from. And also, if you cast your mind over the import cover at a headline level hasn't necessarily changed that much. The total non-mining import cover is probably still around 9 to 10 months, which it was 12 to 18 months ago. The reserves may well be somewhat less, but in terms of import cover, where the economy has started to slow down...
So the ratio is the same.
And that's something the Governor tries to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. So what impact has that had on, say, your business and also on the National Development Bank, this new paradigm, this trading ban? What impact has it had on your business, first of all? And what are you telling your customers, your business customers, about how they need to manage this situation?
We're going through a lot of measures in terms of our business. Like any business, you deal with abnormal shocks. If you've got a business model which is built along one single silo-based revenue stream, then you haven't got a risk mitigation strategy which allows for whether it's going to be a change in government expenditure, change in commodity prices. Therefore, you always try to have a balanced approach to the business. Unfortunately, BSP has a retail sector, it's got a corporate sector, it's got treasury, it's got BSP Capital and other business arms which we are counter-cyclical in nature by and large for our businesses. We try to provide additional support to the extent possible with dealing with any of their larger suppliers overseas, providing them with ratification and confidence that there's Kina available, that there will be dollars in the market. We've tried as much as possible by putting our own balance sheet behind the importer requirements and using our dollars to ensure that some of our larger importers are able to meet supply demands, and equally giving them some insights as to where we feel supply is going to change over the second, third and fourth quarter, which we certainly have confidence that Octedi in particular will be able to provide some dollars into the market that had been absent in the past.
Moses, the National Development Bank is it's a state-owned business, and therefore is more reliant to a certain extent on government finances being available to flow through to it. You've got your own particular challenges at the moment. You talk a little bit about how your challenges are different from maybe the commercial banking sector?
Yeah, I think we need to really manage the expectation of our customers under the circumstances. Just looking at the positive side and the negative side of the currency and also the exchange rate at this point in time. I think there's two parts to it. Yes. One is that there's an opportunity for more efficiency to be put into the businesses, even though customers do have the expectation that they want to grow. But as Robin said, we need to look at the circumstances in which the businesses are being conducted, gone are the boom years.
Yes.
And therefore the businesses need to tighten up. So that's an area that we do give advice to our customers, that you need to look at, the tapping the cost.
Yes.
And look into planting profits, basically, maintaining the cash flow are there, basically, for business continuity. I think the flow and cost of the imported cost that comes through because of the reduction in the Kina,
yes,
needs to be managed by our customers well. But there's opportunity for some of our exporters as well, for the raw materials. So there's a positive and negative under the circumstances, but it's good for our local manufacturers, though,
yes,
industry, because then they need to do a backward integration, basically look at how they can partner with the local suppliers of the goods and services. So
that's something that a lot of businesses are now doing, isn't it? Sourcing locally, where perhaps they were more in the past, they've just gone, it's easier to buy from an established overseas source.
Because it's cheaper there and more efficient way of doing business. So I think there's more, if you like, more efficiency once again. Try to look at what can be done under the circumstances than closing shop altogether.
Yeah. And just to add on to Moses, I think that's the kind of adjustment that the private sector businesses are expected to do.
Yes.
To resort to any cheaper form of or low cost of running the business, and I think it's a positive thing brought about by the currency situation. And the worst thing is that you continue to import, and then the exchange rate continues to decline,
yes,
to the extent where it starts to eat into increase in prices or inflation, high inflation. And just to say that that's the situation we're facing now. We have the exchange rate just released by National Statistical Office. Annual inflation is about 7.2%.
So that's higher than you were expecting?
That's higher than what we expected.
Yes.
So this is a kind of effect that we want to try and avoid as much as possible.
So one could say, and any of you feel free to respond to this, that while the weak Kina puts pressures on maybe people's established ways of doing business, for an agile business person, they can change the way they're doing business to respond to this new situation and actually there are opportunities that can arise out of those changes. Would that be an accurate way of describing the situation?
That's good.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. Which leads me to my next topic I wanted to discuss, which is finance for business. When I started my own business, I think I used my credit card an awful lot to start going, and I guess particularly for startups, getting access to finance when they have a great idea and they want to get going, or when they're a more established business, getting a line of credit that enables them to grow, whether it's acquiring plant or equipment, is absolutely vital for a business to grow. So, but even though there seems to be a lot more competition as far as options for business to go out to the market and get finance, businesses still say it's hard to get money when they have an idea or if they want to expand. So maybe, Governor, why is it so hard to obtain finance in PNG if you're a business person? And what can be done and what is being done to improve the situation?
Yeah. Let me just give the overall in terms of the liquidity that is available or cash that is available in the banking sector, and Robin and Moses can add more. In terms of liquidity, there is excess liquidity in Papua New Guinea.
So the money's there.
There's money there.
Yeah.
So we are, as part of this process, trying to, together with the financial institutions, encourage, individuals and businesses, children, women, to continue to save. Yes. Save for the future, because I think that's one of the main collateral for any further financing or borrowing from financial institutions, that you save first. Yeah. And register your whatever movable assets that can be or fixed assets that you can register, so that they become collateral for your financing. So,
such as a vehicle or
that's right.
House or some other thing that you might have of
that's
value
right. That's
you
right.
can borrow against.
Yes, yes. So in terms of the overall financial liquidity in the financial system, there's more than enough financial cash available for the banks to borrow. Mm-hmm.
That's correct. The small to medium market segment, of course, is always difficult. Yes. Whilst people say we have challenges in terms of being able to access finance, yeah. Any business which is solely dependent upon debt capital is going to struggle to be able to repay its loans and to be able to provide a return to the owner-operator of that particular business. We all know the statistics. 60 to 70% of businesses fail within the first 12 to 18 months. Wow. What we try to provide some guidance from a financial inclusion, financial literacy training perspective via our smart business product is to, first of all, as the Governor's indicated, get into the banking system. It's of limited benefit to a bank to have your cash sitting somewhere else where we're not able to validate, verify and confirm what your daily takings are. Equally, you've got to be in the formal sector to be able to contribute for tax and GST and the like.
So you need a trading record.
Get your trading record established, and the smart business product that we have is built around getting an account open with BSB, which gives us an understanding of the cash flows that are coming in, the cash flows that are going out. Our smart business portfolio has probably increased from 0 to almost 100 million Kina over the last 2.5 years. Which has got many, many loans, particularly in the regional and rural areas. Yeah. Clearly, of course, the current economic conditions aren't necessarily conducive to some of those startup businesses, and our default rates are probably 8 to 10%. The PPSA, which is the chattel mortgages over movable assets, has been introduced.
That's the new register, which is online?
Yeah. Correct, online. We're really yet to test whether that's going to assist us in the recovery for those particular businesses which have gone into default or are experiencing some stress. It certainly is a market that we feel has to be developed, because again, if you're reliant on just the corporates and medium-sized corporates and you're foregoing the potential, the SMEs, you become the potential medium and larger corporates of the future. So we do have a team. Every large branch in PNG has an SME, a smart business lending officer there. They have guidance from a smart business, Dennis Konu in PNG, in Port Moresby. So it is a market that we're certainly focusing on and providing a lot of support and a lot of resources from a people perspective and also from a balance sheet perspective.
And Moses, the NDB is very active in microfinance, for example. So what sort of things are you finding people are coming to the bank to ask for help with as far as getting their businesses off the ground?
Just to comment a bit on the demand on SME
Yes.
loans and touch a bit on the micro.
Yeah.
The demand for SME loans have grown over an average of 20% over the last 3 to 5 years. And the uptake is quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think because of the financial literacy agenda that is being pushed by the Reserve Bank, and also the other financial institutions coming to the picture on more awareness and product information that are aware on the products that are offered by the banks, has created that interest. So that's where we've seen that. And basically at NDB we've got several products basically on the micro level, the small to medium enterprises, and so on the micro level that's where the micro bank comes into play. So we've got a similar program as BSP, but on the micro level where we do encourage locals to open up savings accounts. And basically PNG supposedly has come from a subsistence background where savings for tomorrow is not on the agenda. So basically we are doing that through the micro bank.
So that's about changing people's understanding of what they need to do with the money. If they want to borrow money in the future, they need to start saving now.
They need to start saving now to show some credibility and savings history. And that's where I think the credit growth is going to come from our local people graduating to the SME sector. And we've seen a huge uptake in our savings accounts over the last 3 years. Interestingly, it's just gone up to 70,000 customers, and it's growing every month.
That's fantastic.
And so really the demand for banking products are there. But through the programs we are running and through the financial inclusion agenda, obviously the message is going out, and people are becoming more interested on the products we are offering, basically.
And these are the larger businesses of tomorrow, the startups of today, aren't they?
Exactly.
But they do, as you say, present a risk for a lender. But what kind of projects are people coming to you and asking? What types of businesses are you seeing come to you and saying, I want to start up in this area or that area? Is it right across the economy, or are there particular areas such as agriculture where you're seeing more demand for finance, even at a small level?
The demand is right across all sectors, basically, to the small straight store operator to a small agriculture farmer, and right across to the trucking, real estate. So the whole works, basically. So there is a general pickup in the credit funding for all sort of businesses. And obviously, you're quite right, and Robin mentioned it a while ago as well, that credit risk is very high, basically, for the startups.
Yes.
One, due to the lack of financial literacy and managerial skills. And what we do at the micro bank is that we do run financial literacy skills almost every week. Right. To our customers who have got accounts in there. So basically, that's gaining interest as well, and hopefully as the programs develop, I think people will become more credit savvy and try to better themselves and put them in a better position to obtain credit as they develop.
As far as demand for loans, when you're dealing with larger businesses as well, is there a difference between smaller and larger businesses as far as the kind of projects they're coming to you for finance for, Robin? You just started, for example, BSP's finance only, a year or two ago? So
from BSP Finance, we've seen many people involved, but motor vehicles, supporting hire car businesses, supporting the business, small transportation area, and our smart business products we've seen as diverse a range, service providers, bakeries, again, car hire, and little trade stores, so it is quite diverse and quite broad-ranging.
Yeah. And the observation would be there are plenty of people with ideas.
That's right.
Yeah, there are plenty. Financial literacy is something, Governor, you feel very strongly about, and it's something you've been encouraging. You talk something about how the central bank can help encourage that process.
Yes. We do that through our financial inclusion agenda, which we started in 2010-11. And together with the commercial banks and other financial institutions, based on our research in the past, and everywhere, I think in Africa also the same, and other Pacific Island countries are also saying that in order to get a unbanked person into the open an account, they have to go through some financial literacy program and or some training. So the whole idea about financial literacy is in Papua New Guinea is new, as Moses mentioned. We in most of this generation we've did not go through any form of financial literacy program. So this is now targeting mainly the youths and the children. And there now the uptake, and the gentleman will confirm, the uptake of children's accounts opening is very, very high. The banks are offering no charges, no fees on them. So to which encourages the child to open an account by his parents until he goes over 18 years or over 20 years, and then he can have access to the account. So very important. We that's contributing to reducing the number of unbanked people in Papua New Guinea. So as more people go through financial literacy programs or training, then go and open an account, and that's it. The journey starts.
The journey starts there. Let's look at now, if we can, about what financial services business needs in PNG. I've had the market here described to me as a vanilla market, or banking market, by which they meant that while there are the basic banking services available here, such as obviously you can open a bank account, you can do internet banking, you can borrow money, you can have FPOS, obtain trade finance and so on. There are a lot of banking products that are not available in Papua New Guinea that are offered in more developed markets, shall we say. Do you think realistically, what do you think PNG needs as far as those additional things? I'm thinking, for example, financial advice would be one area where maybe banks in PNG don't have the same kind of activities as, say, a bank would have in, say, Australia or Singapore. Or the availability of internet payment gateways to facilitate e-commerce, for example. Maybe we'll start with you, Robin. What do you think?
Financial services, financial advisory services,
Yeah.
probably want to be cautious about using the Australian model given the issues that
Yes.
Commonwealth Bank of Australia, National Bank and ANZ.
Yeah.
And it's an inherent conflict of interest.
Yes.
So is that a service that we really want to be able to provide at the moment? And is the focus need to be on the development of some of the basic financial literacy skills rather than trying to put in place structures which are very much focused towards back-ending a profit stream for individual banks. Certainly the development of products has to be electronic oriented, and to facilitate that we need a more effective, more efficient and lower cost internet.
Yeah.
IPGs is the internet payment gateways, and each bank has certainly been able to provide certain online products in PNG, but the most effective online products we have, or electronic products, are really the basic mobile banking SMS codes, because that's the type of delivery channel that most Papua New Guineans have access to. Our smartphone penetration is increasing, but predominantly the smartphones are in the urban, the developed areas, and not necessarily the rural areas. To be able to facilitate that, we do need to get, say, it's got to be cost effective, efficient and really low cost broadband, so that we can pump the product out, and equally that the users at the other end are able to access it without necessarily spending more on telecommunication costs than they do on bank fees.
Yes, yeah. What are the prospects of that, Moses, do you think?
Interestingly, this a space that we also are entering, basically on electronic banking. We find that, and it's a common fact here, that most of our customers are rural-based. Geographic terrain is so difficult to access. So I think electronic banking has got a lot more appeal, and also support Robin's comment there on the telecommunication cost. If broadband was available at a much cheaper cost, than because based on the uptake on the use of phones, the SMS banking, funds transfer on the electronic side of things is picking up. Interestingly, that is on the way up.
Yes.
On the smartphones with the latest apps and all that is coming up, and I think we are no different from Kenya, where 50% of the GDP is transacted through the phone.
Mobile phone.
Fantastic.
Mobile phone.
Yeah.
And PNG is no different. We do have, as I said, the same geographic setup and all that. It's just that we need to improve the telecommunication framework and the cost of doing business through that particular mode would be much affordable for everyone else in the industry and community as well.
Governor, you've done your own reforms in this area?
Very much so. I think that's a way to go to for Papua New Guinea. We've seen new products being introduced through the use of mobile phones.
Yeah.
It enables a lot of more people to given the access or the accessibility to mobile phones now and the network around throughout the country. You see now more people transacting on mobile phones. For people like in the rural areas, it really reduces the cost of travel to access any financial services in the towns or urban towns or in the cities. Then we saw new products emerging, been run through mobile phones. The biggest one now we see is insurance. Premiums been paid by
Yep, insurance premiums paid on the phone.
paid on the phones, yeah. And then we've seen an uptake in the recent Financial Inclusion Expo in Mount Hagen in July. We've seen a lot of people signing up for mobile phone products, voluntary super contributions, and of course also in the insurance area, paying premiums through mobile phones.
So they're very exciting developments. Sounds like we need to have a similar panel on telecommunications, given some of the challenges and costs of that. Maybe there is some light maybe at the end of the tunnel. We have a national broadband network that is under construction that looks like it might be finished more or less on time. Do you see that as being a trigger for some of this?
It may well be, but you've got to reduce the costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully, once that network is built, the costs can come down.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's been very interesting to watch the financial services sector in PNG over the last few years. There's been some quite aggressive acts done to expand your businesses here. BST, for example, has acquired some of the assets of Westpac in the Pacific. You've had Kina Bank listing on the Australian Stock Exchange. You've had Money Plus recently announcing that it's looking to list on the Singapore Stock Exchange. That suggests perhaps that PNG as a market on its own isn't quite big enough for you, that maybe you're looking elsewhere. Is there room for growth in the PNG market, or is growth really about expanding beyond PNG? Do you have a sense of what that should be, Governor, maybe to start with? What would you be encouraging the banks here to do as far as, and is there room for more players?
Yes, there is. The market in Papua New Guinea is big, and it's still, there's a lot of other sectors of the economy and people that are not into the financial sector yet.
Yeah.
And that's why part of is trying to get them into the finance sector so that they can and start a journey of being empowering themselves to improve their livelihood. So in terms of the market here is big, but I think you need to, as Robin mentioned, you have to diversify. I think that's it's a way of risk taking, that safeguarding yourself from any risk of concentration into one particular area. So this is where you see the financial institutions here, some of them that you mentioned, moving out to other areas, other particular economies where they feel that they can benefit from, reap the benefit of being in that market. But for Papua New Guinea, we looking at the different sectors here, as Moses mentioned, we had the small rural income earning people that we saw needed separate type of financial institutions. So that's where we started the development of microbanks, and we have 5 licenses at the moment. But finally, they are the ones who collect together with BSP, which is high, network, branch network here, collecting much of the deposits that are out there in the rural people. Yeah.
Robin, you've just come from Vanuatu, where you've been opening your official operations in Vanuatu, BSP Vanuatu. So clearly, BSP is taking a regional view of its growth prospects for the future?
That's correct, and as Governor suggested, it's around the diversification of your income streams, not necessarily being fully dependent on one particular economic sector, and PNG is resource-based. The other countries are, to a large degree, tourism-based and remittance-based in relation to their economic sectors. And BSP is, going back to the privatisation days, PNGBC and BSP, I think it really is fantastic that a Papua New Guinean-owned bank is able to expand beyond the shores, not to necessarily to overtake PNG, but certainly to have that income diversification model and show that perhaps some of the business approaches that we adopt in PNG, which are very much around bringing more people into the banking system, for recognising we are part of the community, that we are a Pacific-based bank sharing a lot of similarities with our home country in PNG. And we've been able to, I think, tap into a very rich vein of support for our staff and customers to that approach and what makes BSP unique. In regards to Kina Securities and others looking at other markets, it's probably more a capital markets issue as distinct from broadening your income and revenue streams. And the capital markets here are still somewhat shallow to the extent there's a lot of dominance by the key superannuation funds. Beyond the key superannuation funds, who equally have to have balanced and diversified portfolios, and there's not necessarily a lot of activity that provides the type of liquidity you need for price tension to exist and for share prices to really reflect the underlying fundamentals of companies listed such as BSP.
So you'd be looking to access alternative...
Well, like everything, you always consider all options, never rule anything out, but consider all options.
So it could be on the pipeline. Now, Moses, the National Development Bank has its own hopes and plans as far as its own expansion in the future, and that may involve not necessarily being in government hands. Is that true?
That's true. Those proposals are in the pipeline. But just based on based on a couple of facts that have come through, particularly from the Bank of PNG, the fact that the GDP of Papua New Guinea for between 2010 and 2015 has grown 69%. The fact that we do have a 2 million plus unbanked people still in Papua New Guinea, particularly in the rural areas, and as well as the fact that there's a growing middle class with appetite for more credit, more services. And so I believe based on those expectations and demand in the financial services sector and in the commercial banking arena, I believe there's scope for one or two more players to come on board and basically provide the credit, particularly that is required at this point in time.
And you probably agree that the stronger and more competitive the banking sector in PNG is, the better that is for business in the longer run.
The better for competition, yes, and the prizes, yes.
Excellent. Well, that's all we have time for today. So I'm going to draw a conversation to a close. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. The Bank of PNG Governor Bikani, BSP's Robin Fleming, and Moses Liu from the National Development Bank. Now, if you've enjoyed this program and you'd like to see it again, then you'll be able to see it on the EMTV website and also on businessadvantagepng.com and also on Facebook, where you'll be able to post your comments. My thanks to the production team at EMTV for this very first episode, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another episode of Business Advantage Boardroom. I'm Andrew Wilkins. Goodbye.
And that's all from us tonight. To view the full unedited interview, visit EMTV online at the URL at the bottom of the screen. And as always, for up-to-the-minute business news and updates from around the country and the region, like our page on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at Business PNG or on Tumblr. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Michelle Bird and this was Business PNG.